We have Chris Brentel joining us. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning.
Okay, so I promised we'd talk a little bit about this. This is I guess, something a little bit of a history lesson. Of course, we'll talk about the Janet Jackson thing here in a minute. But first, do you watch the halftime shows during the Super Bowl?
It's on, but I don't particularly pay too much attention to it. I'm usually eating.
Yeah, well, I normally don't. I normally don't pay a whole lot of attention. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw a halftime show that was somebody that I was excited about. The Who wasn't bad. Other than, I mean, I will say some of them have surprised me though. Last year, this Bruno Mars kid, I knew nothing about him going in. He put on a pretty good show.
Yeah, the Prince wannabe, that guy.
Yeah. Well, he's more like a James Brown wannabe, because he does the dance moves and he wears the flashy clothes. Prince put on a pretty good show too.
Prince was all right.
For a Super Bowl halftime
like they're
show.
lip syncing to me. I don't know.
Well, now Bruno Mars didn't lip sync last year. His band was pantomiming, and the Chili Peppers were lip syncing.
I think Bruno Mars was too. I don't think there's any proof he wasn't.
Well, it could have been a recorded track.
I don't think one artist would lip sync during a Super Bowl. One wouldn't.
Well, it could have been a recorded track, and it just had imperfections in it. Because I mean, it didn't sound perfect. It didn't sound like studio.
Yeah.
So it could have been
kind of good.
Yeah. But it was a decent show for Super Bowl halftime show.
It was a good show.
I mean, obviously they've moved away from anything that would be remotely scandalous after the whole Janet Jackson thing.
And I have no proof he lip synced. I'm just guessing, because usually at any type of situation like this, they lip sync. It's just on award shows they lip sync typically. On Saturday Night Live they lip sync. So I just assume they do.
Well, and for one reason, it's really hard to set up the equipment that fast and be real. So
and get the sound good.
Yeah, and get the sound good. It is. I mean, it really is. It's quite a challenge, because I mean they have. I think it's a 30-minute halftime instead of 20, like a regular football game. But they have about 5 minutes to set up that stage and get 1,000 people out in the field and act like they're excited.
Right. It's almost impossible in 5 minutes to set up all that and get the sound right.
Yeah. I mean, for what it is, some of them have been pretty good shows. But the Janet Jackson thing, this was Super Bowl 38. It's 2004, so it's the 11th anniversary of this. And since then, they haven't had anybody. I mean, Katy Perry might be the closest thing to being somewhat controversial, and even Katy Perry's pretty clean cut. I mean, I don't think there's any chance of any. Of course, people thought that about Janet Jackson too, but and Justin Timberlake. But the effects of that are what kind of it never really surprises me when this kind of stuff happens. But the effect that it had on radio. I mean, after this happened, the FCC raised their maximum fine for indecency violations from $27,500 per event to $325,000 per event, and for the old school morning shock jock radio shows that were syndicated all over the place, that's per station. So you're somebody like Howard Stern, you say something that's a FCC violation, all of a sudden you're on 60 or 70 stations. I think at his peak he was about 60 stations. That's $325,000 per station. Wow. per indecency violation. And I think that's kind of what ran him off the satellite radio.
Yeah.
That, and they backed the Brinks truck up for him. Gave him $500 million to go to satellite radio, which that's whether that's a good investment or not. Although I will say Sirius made a pretty good business decision on that one, I think, because they managed somehow to take over the larger company, because XM was larger than Sirius when they first started, and even when they merged, XM was the larger company. Yet somehow Sirius managed to take them over during the merger, which I still don't understand. But I think Howard was probably a big part of that. Now, you're a good bit younger than I am. I mean, did you listen to that kind of stuff growing up?
I used to, on occasion, I'd watch the Howard. You know, they'd have the 30-minute
on
TV,
on
the
TV.
Howard Stern. So I'd watch that. But no, I didn't really listen to Howard Stern. I grew up on sports radio.
Yeah.
Sports. There's a station in Kansas City we used to always listen to. So this is all sports talk, and then sometimes I'd listen to political talk at night.
Yeah. Well, and you probably at nighttime.
Actually, someone used to be on this station at night that I used to listen to all the time. But
Savage,
yeah. But so I've listened. I mean, talk radio is something I've heard for a long time. But as far as shock jock types, there's a few in Kansas City that I'd hear on occasion.
Yeah,
but
the local guys,
the local guys.
Yeah, and every market used to have that local shock jock guy. But this Super Bowl halftime show killed shock jocks, and I mean.
And it shouldn't have, really.
No, it shouldn't have. I mean, and the FCC. I mean, they at the time they were run by Michael Powell, Colin Powell's son, who was just given the job because George W. Bush wanted to suck up to Colin Powell, which obviously did the Republican Party a world of good in 2008 and 2012. Completely turned his back. But anyway, so the
you can't trust a guy with the name Colin. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, yeah. Look, he was a good general, not so much as a politician. Just my whole problem with this thing is it just completely neutered radio, and radio at one point. I mean, I don't think I would have ever been very good at this, this shock jock type stuff. I don't think I would have been good at it, but that's the kind of things I listened to when I was growing up. I'd listen to that, and then, like you, I'd listen to political talk later in the day. I don't. You probably don't. Probably never even heard of a guy named Bruce Williams, but I used to listen to him a lot. He used to play at night where I lived. He would give advice to people, mostly financial advice, but sometimes it would just be, my neighbor's being a jerk. Should I build a higher fence to get away from it? It was just everyday life, and this guy had done so much in his life that he had so many life experiences that he could give advice on just about everything. And that's what talk radio used to be before the political thing came around. So, I mean, as a radio junkie and as somebody that always wanted to get into radio when I was younger, I like that variety. I mean, from the shock jock stuff to just completely clean advice, listening to Rush. I mean, I listened to Rush when I was 18 years old. I mean, I still remember he had a TV show at one point.
He did.
Yeah.
I've watched it before. And my dad used to listen to him on occasion. So, when I was a kid, I heard a lot of Rush. Yeah. But, it's amazing how that one incident changed everything.
One incident changed everything. It changed TV. It changed radio. And the funny thing about it is it wasn't even technically an FCC violation because there was a little sticker thing on there. So there wasn't really even technically an FCC violation. And I believe, if I remember right, the network actually ended up getting out of those fines.
It makes you wonder
or they
if
might
you
have settled.
Need an FCC, to be honest with you.
There's a need for the FCC to exist because the airwaves, not unfortunately, I guess fortunately for the radio stations, but they go past state lines.
Right.
So there's interstate commerce there. There's only a certain number of frequencies, so you have to have somebody that keeps track of the frequencies and make sure that we don't broadcast at 500,000 watts and blow everybody else out of the water. I could understand the need for that, but this idea of the FCC policing everything, policing speech, you get into a really tough spot there.
Yeah, that's what always worries me is right now it's stuff that we'd all probably consider to be obscene that they would say you can't say on air.
Yeah.
But then in 20 years, what is it we're not going to be able to say on air? That's what worries me. I think an interesting part about this is that was kind of that whole incident. You mentioned that Change Radio. That's kind of when I first realized that our news media, and I was in my late teens, our news media was a joke.
Yeah,
That's when I realized it, because that story was everywhere on every single 24-hour news channel, all about Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake and a wardrobe malfunction. I mean, that's when I figured out that, you know what, I can't trust these people. They do it for entertainment purposes, and that's Fox News included. That's not just the liberal stations. All of them are included in this. All they want to do is make money.
Well,
and they want to. They're more into entertainment than really being the watchdog for the people against the government.
And that is something. It's sensationalism. I mean,
Right.
Let's be honest. Sex sells, and a story about Janet Jackson having her top ripped off by Justin Timberlake.
And people being outraged sells, and that's what it created.
Yeah.
People were mad, or you could show Janet Jackson with her shirt ripped.
Yeah, but people are, and I understand you don't want your kids to see that kind of stuff, and they made the correction with the Super Bowl shows. I mean, they'll probably never have anything even remotely possible to. And this is how we got into this. We thought, oh, it's Katy Perry. I mean, what if she has a wardrobe malfunction? It'll never happen again. I mean, they learned their lesson on that. So it's one of those things you can kind of back off a little bit and stop going after everybody else and punishing all other media for it. As far as the FCC controlling what speech, I think you draw the line at the 7 dirty words.
I agree.
Yeah, and that's where that's how the FCC ended up getting the authority to police speech on the airwaves. Anyways, a radio station in New York City, a Pacifica network radio station, played during afternoon drive time. This is 4 p.m. They played the George Carlin 7 dirty words, and obviously somebody didn't like that, and they filed a complaint in the FCC, and the FCC won. And I think you draw the line at the 7 dirty words, and anything short of that, I think you're all right with. Of course, if your boss is all right with it. Because, I mean, the station I came from before, my old boss, he got in trouble for saying hell on the radio. The owner called in one day. The owner lived out of town, called in. He was on hold, heard, and he didn't say, he didn't tell somebody to go to hell or something like that. He just said hell, like what the hell, something like that. And the owner, oh, you can't say that. You got to write him up. Told the PD to write him up for saying hell. So the owner can set whatever kind of restrictions they want, but the FCC, as long as it's not, as long as you're on frequency and you're not, overpowered, they should just leave you alone. And the 7 dirty words.
Yeah, I agree. That's the line. They should leave you alone. And it's worrisome of, the old fairness doctrine, I think is what it is. Who's going to be used to police that or get that in motion? It's going to be the FCC.
See, the FCC is pretty much turned away from radio. They're letting radio do whatever they want. We might see the return of the shock jock. Here's the thing. They're going to start trying to do some kind of fairness doctrine type work on the internet. That's
a good point.
They are hell bent. I'm not going to get in trouble for saying hell bent, am I? The hell bent.
They're H bent.
Yeah, they're heck bent. They're heck bent on getting control of the internet, and that's where they're going right now. They're gonna try to get control of the internet. This under this guise of net neutrality, which is not what they're looking for, and then they're going to go after content.
And that's a problem because we got to keep the internet free, and that's something that surpasses whether you're on the right side of things, left side of things, central. No.
Well,
we can't let that happen.
And the president the other night mentioned that we want to keep the internet free, but what he doesn't tell you is that all of his advisors, he's bringing in all these people. Cass Sunstein, for example, Cass Sunstein had a proposal. Say you go and look at the Fox News website or Michael Savage's website or Rush's website. His proposal would have a pop-up of an opposing view, and it would force you to watch it.
Wow. Cass Sunstein, he's the beacon of freedom, this guy.
Yes, quite. And I wonder if a pop-up blocker on your browser would be a criminal offense.
They come get you.
You ever do you use a pop-up blocker on your browser?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Turn it off one time and go to the Blaze, Glenn Beck's website.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
is it terrible?
it's like 20 million pop-ups.
Oh no.
I like the news that they do, and I like the commentary, but oh my God, the pop-ups are terrible. And apparently he's addressed that on the air. But what he did is he hired the marketing person from Huffington Post to run his website.
That's a smart move.
Well, I guess they make money off those pop-ups.
I guess so.
Make it hand over fist, but I mean, it'll crash my phone. If I go to that website on my phone, it crashes the phone, restarts and everything. Okay, what do we have going on in sports?
KIML basketball and Cowgirl basketball.
Okay, sounds good. We'll see you on Monday. News Talk 1270 KIML.
You're listening to Don Carpenter on Gillette's Heritage Station. News Talk 1270 KIML.